and welcome to the 500 workshop. What we're going to do today is look at ignition timing. Now this might be difficult to capture on camera, so we're going to try and do our best, but we're going to try and take you through what you need to do in order to get the car timed well. So we're going to start by looking at Distributor. So here we have a Distributor. I think this is from a 126 650cc engine, but the principles are all the same. Okay, so this part here, the cog, will turn as the camshaft turns. And here we have 1 and 2 on the cap. See that? So this relates to cylinder 1 and cylinder 2. Now your HT lead, one will come out from cylinder 1 to from the one here to the cylinder 1, and this one will come out on the HT lead cylinder 2, and this one goes to your coil. So if we take the cap off, a bit tight, there we go, and inside the cap, there's a point on there and a point on that side of the cap, and as this rotator turns, it will create the spark on the different points on the cap. Now this is what we really need to understand here. So we have the distributor moving round, and if we just take that off for a second, you might be able to see that this piece here is lobed. Now as it turns, that lobe piece creates a gap within the points, and that allows the electricity to spark out through the HT leads into the spark plug. So if we put this back on, and it can only go on one way, make sure we have it the right way. There we go. So if we place the cap gently on, and again the cap can only go one way as well, which is like that. You see number 1 cylinder is this side. So as this comes round here and creates a gap in the points, that will create a spark. Okay, so that will be one sparking. Now what you want is for this to be creating a spark just as the cylinder is at its highest point, so top dead center, and so it will create the explosion in the cylinder as this comes around. So if I was going to place this distributor into the engine block for the first time, what I'd be looking at is to get my engine in top dead center, and we'll show you how to do that in a second, and for it to be roughly just before the point where it would open on number 1 cylinder. The points would open as the rotator hits number 1 here. So we'd place it in this position. The gear would mesh roughly accurately. Won't be timed, but we would be good enough to hopefully start the car and then use our timing light to actually time the car properly. So again, just to confirm, we want 1 cylinder, we want the cylinder on top dead center, so we want the one on the cap here, and we want this to be swinging round just about to touch it and create the gap in the points there. Now on my cars I have electronic distribution, so they don't have the points, but they do have this rotator, and again we want it to be the cap goes on in a very similar way as well. We want this to be pretty much in line or just before the one on the top of the cap here with the engine in top dead center position. Okay, so we're going to show you how to find top dead center now on our engine. So we have our rocker cover off, so we can see our valves opening and closing. We also have our distributor cap off, I've also marked the distributor here, so we know that's where cylinder 1 is for the spark for cylinder 1. And I've got a 17 socket on our dynamo here in the Tighten position. And as we rotate this pulley, we'll just switch over to here a second, and we'll see that we've got a arrow pointing here. So as we rotate our pulley, our crank moves around, and in a second we should get some markings on our oil filter, which you'll see. Here we go. So here we have a mark on our oil filter, which I've also painted white to help, and that will help as well when we get the light gun in. And just put a couple of markings to align with that as well, so we know when it comes around to there. From this angle it doesn't look like it's lined, but trust me, that's lined up nicely. Now we get to kind of top to dead center twice on a cycle. The first will be cylinder 1 and then cylinder 2. So how can we tell whether we're on cylinder 1 or cylinder 2 top dead center? Well, what we look at is our valve here, and as we turn, as you can see now, hopefully you can see this, the inlet, so that's the air and fuel mixture, is coming into cylinder 1. Now we know it has to get in cylinder 1 before we can actually create the ignition. So we'll come round, and that's coming back up now. Now as that comes back up, we should see in a second, here are marks coming round, and that will be at the point where we want top dead center to be, and we want our cap here to be touching cylinder 1 within the cap here. So the rotator, same as, although this hasn't got points, same rotators coming round, touching the metal piece within the cap, which sends the spark out. Now we know we're top dead center here as well, because as we rotate more, we should see the exhaust start to go down, and there it does. So it's letting out the exhaust there. So what we're looking for again is, as the exhaust comes up, the depression of the inlet, that will come back up, and then we should be looking for our marks to match here, and that will be our top dead center line. So I mentioned this when we were looking at the distributor, but you want to drop it in the hole with this kind of aligned near your spark 1, and then to secure it in place, you have this plate here and a 13mm nut here. Now when we come to do timing and adjust the timing with the timing gun, what we want to do is just crack this nut off slightly, not so the distributor can lift out, but just so we can move the distributor, rotate it basically, is what we're going to do. So my next job is to put the rotator cap, put the distributor cap back on, which is here, put all the leads back in, and crack that nut off before we can start the engine and time it up. So our distributor cap is back on, and here we have a battery and a timing gun. So let's just look at the timing gun a second. So this is just a really cheap timing gun. It's just a Draper model. Stock number, if you're interested, is 3906, just in case you wanted to buy something similar. And what we have with our timing gun is this piece, which will go over the HT cable for number 1 cylinder. So that goes over there like that, and then on our battery we have our positive cable which we'll put on, and then our negative cable. Okay, so now we're set up. All we need to do is start the car, and then we can use our timing gun to adjust the timing. I've already cracked off the nut on the distributor like I talked about, so we have some minor adjustment where we want it. Now this is quite difficult to film, and it's quite difficult to film for a couple of reasons. One is the gun capturing the actual point where it's going around. So as the gun flashes, the white on the timing point here, and you'll be able to see that against the white markings on the oil filter and the pulley here. You can normally see that with the naked eye quite well. A little bit more difficult with cameras. So we'll see what it picks up and how much it picks up. But we can also do it a little bit by ear as well, and just try and understand how it's running. You need to be careful of the exhaust. It gets very hot very quickly. So that should be everything we need to do in order to start the engine and then refine our timing. One thing that I do have, which you might not have as well, is this. Now this is a replica of the original timing plate that would have been used by Fiat engineers. So what the timing plate does is it has 0 degrees, that's our top dead center, 10 degrees advance, and 28 degrees. Now I think if you're trying to time it without the engine running, I think you set it to about 10 degrees just before top dead center. And as you time it up, it should end up somewhere between 10 and 28 degrees. This fits over here like this, and it kind of gives us some nice markings closer to the case as well, so we can see as it rotates what's happening. Now this plate is something that I've recreated on a CAD and then got 3D printed. At some point in the future I will be selling the designs for this, so you can get your own 3D printed. It is good to have, and it does help us out a little bit. Okay, so our engine is started. Doesn't sound like it's ticking over particularly well at the moment, so what I'm going to do is get the gun in here. Let's see if I can help a little bit show this. And I can see that we're currently probably ticking over about 15 to 20 degrees, somewhere between midpoint between the 10 and the 28 degrees. I'm just going to adjust this. Get away. Just around the 28 degree mark. Just tick over a little bit better. Still sounds a little. Just going to rev it a little bit as well. Marking again, I don't know whether you can quite see, but they are pretty much dead on 28 there. So now we've finished with our timing, happy with where we've got to, we can just remove our plate. It doesn't get too hot there, so that's good, doesn't melt the plastic. And all we need to do now is tighten this nut. But due to the heat coming off the exhaust at the moment, I'm going to give it a few minutes to cool down so I don't burn myself, and then just tighten that up. And our timing is good.